Imagine you come home one evening after a long day and you collapse. You really don't feel well. You end up in the hospital with suspected meningitis and are airlifted to the nearest university hospital. It takes 4 days to find out what's wrong with you. And the bad news is, well, it's not meningitis. Yes, I mentioned the bad news because you might have preferred a serious illness that could leave you disabled. In medicine, the suffix "oma" refers to a mass of something. For example, a hematoma is a mass of blood. It can be dangerous if it's in the wrong place, but most of the time, well, you just call it a bruise. But a mass of something, the rest of the time, well, that's a tumor. Again, a tumor can be anything and everything and be totally insignificant. And it can also be cancer. Lymphoma, sarcoma, carcinoma. But here, they're telling you it's a diffuse glioma. Diffuse, in principle, isn't really a concept you associate with serious things. But diffuse, when it comes to cancer, means that this bastard, instead of staying quietly in its corner, spreads out. What is the first treatment we use for cancer? No, it's not chemo. No, it's not radiotherapy either. It's surgery. We cut. Cancer is basically cells multiplying erratically while ignoring the body's signals telling them to stop. But, well, if you cut out the cancer, well, you're cured. So we say in remission, but, well, basically you're cured. The problem is, the human body isn't exactly made of useless things. Cutting out a cancer also means undergoing mutilation. So, it's already not fun, but in theory, you have the cancer, the non-cancer, you cut around the cancer, and that's it. But if that bastard is diffuse, meaning that when the doctor opens you up, he has trouble seeing where the cancer ends. Where is he supposed to cut? Because the problem is, if he leaves even a single cancer cell, well, that bitch is going to pick up right where her sisters left off, you know? The cancer will regrow like a mushroom. Carcinoma comes from carcinos, a Greek word that gave us cancer, but it actually means crab. That's why in your horoscope it says cancer, even though there's a crab. And it's mainly because Hippocrates in his time noticed that a cancer would spread out like crab legs. So, the doctor not only has to remove the ugly lump that's growing, but also all the offshoots it might send out, which could end up in places we really don't want to cut. Additionally, he must cut with a wide margin to ensure he doesn't miss any cells. Sometimes you can't cut because it's in a bad spot, or you can't remove everything since that would be too mutilating. So that's when radiation and chemo come into play. I'm going to simplify, so Jean-Michel from med school, please understand that my goal here isn't accuracy, but making sure as many people as possible understand the concepts, which I'm deliberately going to keep vague so I don't lose people with details that are actually useless here. So radiation and chemo, they're poisons. Today, chemo uses protocols that are more and more targeted and less harmful to the body. And with radiotherapy, we've become more and more precise, but overall, their goal is to kill cells. Ionizing radiation used in radiotherapy damages DNA. It's like in Chernobyl. Except that obviously, the goal is to precisely control the dose of these rays. Because if we damage the DNA just a little, our cells are well designed and they know how to repair themselves. Same for chemo. Today, we have more and more protocols that focus on certain proteins, or certain types of cells. But overall, the idea, well, it's still to hurt them. And so, when they're multiplying, our cells are very fragile. So damaging their DNA with ionizing radiation and they die. Block one of their multiplication processes with chemo and they die. And which is constantly multiplying in our body. So, cancer, yes, but not only that. Your hair too. Or the cells in your digestive tract. And yes, that's why some chemo makes your hair fall out or makes you nauseous. But so, the logic behind this is that if we can't cut out the cancer and it's in a very specific spot, we'll focus an ionizing beam on it. By aiming right at that spot, it allows us to spare the rest of the body. But if that bastard has decided to spread its cells all over the body, we can't give you whole body radiation. That would really be like Chernobyl. Let's say it does exist in some cases, I refer you to the video about bone marrow transplants, but overall, whole body radiation is still pretty intense. So, they send the chemo into your blood, so it goes everywhere, and no cell can escape it. And also, even when they've removed the tumor, usually they still give you chemo or radiation to make sure that if any cell was missed, well, they're not just going to let it quietly multiply again. Slight change of subject, but not much. Have you ever heard the slogan, "Antibiotics aren't automatic"? Do you know what that means? Antibiotics are for killing bacteria. But a bacteria mutates a lot and it evolves very quickly. Imagine you're sick and you take an antibiotic. With the first dose, you kill 90% of the bacteria. With the second dose, you kill 90% of what's left. And then, well, you say it's fine, right? I'm cured, plus the medicine tastes awful, so you stop. In your body, there's still 1% of the bacteria that made you sick. That should be fine. Except that it's 1%, it's the 1% of the most resistant bacteria, the ones that took antibiotics twice and still didn't die. If you stop your treatment, there's a good chance that among that 1%, there will be a bacteria that will actually develop resistance to the antibiotic. And so, if it multiplies again and you have a relapse, it will probably be because of these resistant bacteria. And if you decide to take your antibiotic again, well, I have bad news for you. It won't work anymore. And that's why we stopped handing out antibiotics left and right to avoid creating resistant strains. Once your bacteria becomes resistant to all treatments, well, you're really in trouble. But let's get back to our cancer and to our chemo. The first cells that chemo will kill are the weakest ones. And the last ones it will kill are the most resistant. But what if, at the end of your treatment, not all of them have been killed? The ones that remain have no reason to stay quiet. They start multiplying again, and your cancer will come back. Except that this time, well, it's possible that the chemo won't have any effect anymore. Fortunately, as I was saying, there isn't just one chemo protocol, so at this stage, you can still hope to find another one. But if after that one the cancer comes back, things start to go downhill. And so diffuse glioma. Glioma is a degeneration of glial cells. And glial cells are the ones that surround the neurons in the brain and the central nervous system. And so, very often, glioma will settle right there. In an area of the brainstem called the pons, the thing that connects your brain to the rest of your body, well hidden under the brain. Let me tell you, poking around in there with a scalpel is not the best idea. So basically, it's inoperable. So now you're going to tell me, well, just hit it with radiation, right? Well, yes. But it's not over. Because some gliomas are somewhat sensitive to radiotherapy and others not really. No more than they are to chemo. These gliomas carry a mutation on a gene called H3K27M, which keeps them in a state similar to that of stem cells. Basically, they repair themselves well, can move around, and are completely invisible to the immune system. So, well, we discovered that certain molecules weaken them and make them more sensitive to radiotherapy. But still not enough. For a diffuse brainstem glioma, we use radiation therapy, which generally helps to shrink the tumor, but not to destroy it. So it comes back, and when it comes back in general, it's over. I don't need to spell it out for you. The diagnosis of diffuse brainstem glioma, except in very rare cases, is considered incurable. Yes, I told you that you'd have preferred meningitis. At least then, you had a chance to get through. This is a scary thought experiment I'm putting you through. But I haven't even told you the best part yet. If this disease wasn't already bad enough, it also has the nerve to be a pediatric disease. This crap affects kids. Central nervous system tumors are the second most common in kids after leukemias, which alone make up a quarter of the cases. And among those, 10 to 20 are diffuse gliomas. What that means is that every year in France, about 50 families get this damn diagnosis for their kid. I'm a young dad. Stats like that can really make you feel sick to your stomach. I have a long history with cancer. It killed some of my loved ones, it badly maimed others, and I have regular checkups to monitor, let's say, a certain family predisposition. And I can't be the only one, since it's estimated that 1 in 2 people has or will have cancer in their lifetime. So when a few days ago I happened to read, completely by chance in the local paper, the story of Leo. How should I put it? Leo is a kid who lives in the village next to mine. I don't know him, and I doubt he knows me, and I really mean kid, because when at 18 years old you're told this, being airlifted to the university hospital after a fainting spell and the diagnosis that would have been better off as meningitis, that's him, that's Leo. And that was in December 2023. Merry Christmas. So he had radiotherapy. Then things got better for 2 years. Then in the spring of 2025, he had to undergo another, stronger round, which left him epileptic and with memory problems. And now they're telling him that, well, the tumor is coming back. Again. So with his mother, they decided to organize fundraisers to support research on childhood cancers and to spread the word so people would hear about it. So there you go. Now you've heard about it. And so at my baker's in the morning I saw this. It's a village festival, so there won't be a Ferris wheel and I won't be there either. I'm already booked that weekend. But it's something organized by an association from his hometown, and I thought it wouldn't hurt to show it to you, and to tell you that the funds raised will go to the Strasbourg University Hospital for a research project on childhood brain tumors. This thing. So, if you're not too far away and you're bored that Sunday, or if you have $10 to spare, and if you haven't decided yet which Typee or YouTuber crowdfunding to put it in, well, on the Hope for Children website, there's a button to make a donation. There you go. And if you don't want to donate, as usual, this isn't an order to donate, that's not my style. I just wanted to do a bit of advertising. Perfect, because why not? We've beaten infectious diseases, we're doing pretty well with cardiovascular diseases, so the next step is to beat cancer. It's still going to win a lot of battles, but it would be nice if we could finally win the war. Look up to the sky, be astronomical, and all the umes. Go screw yourselves.